1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHBC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening. If your mother is anything like mine, she probably told you weeks ago not to get her anything for Mother's Day. And of course the question is, since when did Mother's Day become a Jewish holiday? Don't bother yourself over me. Of course we know to ignore such self-defacing comments, but you may have a point. Isn't every day supposed to be Mother's Day? The Torah tells us to honor and revere our mothers at all times. So why go out of your way to show her your gratitude on Mother's Day? How can we benefit from using Mother's Day? And my answer really is by treating it like a pseudo-Jewish holiday. If Mother's Day is your way out of showing her how much she means to you the rest of the year, the day actually becomes a vehicle basically to reduce true appreciation for moms. So how can we benefit from using Mother's Day? Again, by treating it like a pseudo-Jewish holiday. What do I mean? You see, Jewish holidays are fundamentally different than secular holidays like the 4th of July or President's Day. Such holidays commemorate events, while Jewish holidays are really a portal in time when we can re-experience the spiritual forces that were unleashed due to a historical event. For example, on the upcoming holiday of Shavuos, the Jewish people receive the Torah. Therefore, every year on Shavuos, we have the opportunity to accept the Torah anew and strengthen our personal commitment. Time is spiral. As we travel through time, we return to the key moments of the past and basically recapture the inherent spiritual energy of that day. That's why Jewish holidays are referred to in Hebrew as Moadim. Moadim b'simcha, meeting places. Similarly, the Hebrew word Ziman, time, means designated or appointed because every moment in time has been appointed with a specific spiritual purpose. But doesn't that purpose apply to the rest of the year? Let's take, for example, Passover. It celebrates God freeing the Jewish people from the slavery in Egypt. But the Torah requires us to recall the Exodus from Egypt every day as part of our Shema. Why then do we celebrate Passover if we already recall the Exodus continuously every day of the entire year? What's the big deal of Passover? The same question can be asked of almost every Jewish holiday. On Shavuos, we celebrate God giving us the Torah at Mount Sinai. But we also have a general commandment to remember the events of Sinai as often as we can, every day. So how then does rejoicing in Shavuos enhance our religious experience? We celebrate all Jewish holidays with the following idea in mind. Yes, we need to remember all of God's miracles and kindnesses all the time. But such a proposition is difficult. Doing something constantly tends to weaken its intensity. We get routine, becomes boring. Eventually, the dramatic can become tedious, and rote becomes a rote. So holidays allow us to concentrate on that vital component of our spiritual lexicon for a day or a week, and then to be able to transmit that idea into our essence for the rest of the year. So we get all excited during a particular holiday, and that warmth and depth becomes part of the experience the rest of the year. We recalculate, so to speak, and rejuvenate ourselves. Yes, we need to constantly work on attaining freedom. But Passover arrives, and we relive the Jewish people's exodus from Egypt for a full week. We become empowered to carry over that attitude of true freedom for the rest of the year. So if you celebrate Mother's Day, do it with the same approach as a Jewish holiday. Show her your appreciation, whatever it is, buy her an e-card today and roses and go ahead. And of course, take her out for a Zoom dinner. But make sure that these displays of gratitude and affection are not just an annual occasion. Mother's Day should be a day full of love and endearment that helps us to continuously experience such feelings throughout the year. So this, my friends, is Mother's Day Jewish style. But I also want to share with you a rather sensitive issue in relationship to Mother's Day. And that is, well, let's put it briefly. While some are counting down to Mother's Day and looked forward to this, even under the present circumstances, with excitement and anticipation, many, my dear friends, are looking at this date on the calendar, Mother's Day, with dread and anxiety. Why? For those desperately longing to have a child, but have been denied by nature because they're waiting to find a spouse, let's be honest, my friends, Mother's Day and all the fanfare that surrounds it only pours salt onto the wounds. While many of our young men and women of marriageable age assume that once a couple decides that they would like to start a family, it is simple to conceive and bring a healthy baby into the world, we all know the truth is not so simple. 1 out of 8 couples suffer from infertility, which includes the inability to get pregnant, secondary infertility, or loss of pregnancy stillborn. Up to 20% of those who do become pregnant experience a miscarriage. 80% of those miscarriages occur within the first trimester, when the couple is unlikely to have told anyone that they were expecting and before the woman begins to show. Our matriarch, Rachel, knew the pain of childlessness. She screamed out the famous words, Im ayin mesonachi, if I don't have a child, I'm already dead. From which the Talmud tells us, likens that the pain of being childless while wanting children, it compares it to a form of death. Indeed, those longing to have children describe the pain of their disappointment as the death of their dreams and hopes, and the grief similar to the loss of a loved one who isn't coming back. Day after day, think about this, of taking shots, undergoing fertility treatments, attempting IVF cycles, and going into debt to afford it is extremely painful, but well worth it if it results, Baruch Hashem, in a healthy child. But when the results come back negative, and the procedure turns out not to help, or the IVF proves unsuccessful, the physical and material pain is negligible compared to the emotional agony and the anguish. Compounding this deep pain is the reality that most of the people struggling with infertility or who have suffered a miscarriage are grieving without anyone even knowing. They are forced to spend their days interacting with others as if all is well, as alles is good, when in fact it isn't. Since others don't know about their struggle, they are deprived of awareness, the support, the love, the assistance. It leaves them feeling lonely. Just as many people who sat in their own homes during Pesach or even still are quarantined all by themselves and no one to talk to. Talk to anyone suffering from infertility or with loneliness and the longing to meet someone and start a family, and they will tell you that worse than the indifference of friends and acquaintances is the unintentional insensitivity of so many who have been blessed with healthy children and who have made comments, tell stories, share pictures, or complain about their children. The Torah tells us, V'achai achicha imoch, when your brother or sister is feeling down and out, uplift them and support them. We can't necessarily help our single family and friends find their spouse, and we often don't even know who around us is in anguish from infertility. However, what we should think about, especially Mother's Day, we can all do better. We must do much better to be sensitive in how we talk, what we post, and when we share. On Mother's Day, rather than turn to the social media as a public stage to profess love and appreciation to mothers and wives, I'm suggesting we should directly and personally tell the mothers in our lives how we feel, or take the time to write a private, heartfelt card, making our loved ones feel good without making others feel bad. So guess what? Rachel's prayers were answered and her hopes were realized. She not only became a mother, but is known as in perpetual forever as Mama Rachel, the mother of our whole people. So let's take a moment on this Mother's Day, on this Mother's Weekend, and daven and pray for all those longing to be married and those longing to have children and have their prayers answered and their dreams fulfilled. So you see, my friends, Mother's Day is an amazing moment if we approach it, like I said earlier on, like a pseudo-Jewish holiday. Today, with all of us being in quarantine, I was thinking a lot. This Mother's Day gives us a valuable chance to pause and reflect on our goals for our family's life. So whether you're a mother or not, let's take a few minutes today to sit quietly and think about the answers to some questions that I propose. And that is, as parents, father, mother, grandmother, grandfather, what do I want the atmosphere to be like in my home? Right? You all remember John Lennon, Olav Shalom, famously said, life is what happens while you're making plans. Too often, the mood in our homes is a byproduct. What naturally happens while we're busy pursuing other goals. So one of the highest Jewish wishes for a person is that they should have shalom bayis, to have peace, right? We all know about peace in the home. And it means peace. Shalom is the absence of strife, a state of relating to each other with respect and kindness. But in Hebrew, shalom means even more than that. Shalom has a second meaning as well. It denotes completeness. When we wish for shalom in our homes, in our families, we're asking for more than a mere end of arguments. We're asking for a sense of completeness, a sense of truly knowing one another. And during this time, when we've had so much time, we have an opportunity to think about this in a more deeper way. Another important thing is that we can gain from the world that we live in now is the importance of time that we have together. Getting to know other people takes time, and families are no exception. Yet these days, with the coronavirus and quarantine, time seems like one commodity that we're really high on. We got plenty of time. So with less pressures from work and from school, spending time together with no outside distractions, we can see is becoming a possible goal, a possible way. So one of the concerns that we've often reoccurring in our minds is, with Hashem's help, we'll get out of this pandemic period. But how are we going to go forward? Are we just going to go back to the status quo? Or are we going to come out with some deeper, really long-lasting reflections on our life? And one of the things I suggest that comes to mind is for us to restart, to rethink our schedules at meal times. See, a host of studies have shown that kids who eat regularly with their parents have significantly lower rates of drug and alcohol abuse. They earn higher grades and have a better self-image. The way in which families eat together seems to be important too. Families that ate together while watching TV, guess what, had higher rates of family tension than those who conversed and spoke during the meal. In my home, Bloom is very careful to herself and telling me, take the phone, put the cell phone away, no phone calls, no receiving texts, no responding to it, just separate, just eat together. You see, Judaism also gives us a weekly formula for the kind of togetherness that's associated with a healthier family. Shabbos is a time when families traditionally tune out of the pressures of work, school and the like, and turn inward to focus on each other instead. Shabbos dinner and other meals can be a needed break from the thick of the week. Give us a chance to relax, to unwind, have a live conversation with loved ones and guests. Obviously, maybe now a little bit more restrained because of social distancing, but we all know what I'm talking about. And when we use our time properly, away from all the technology, we begin to get to know each other once again. Another important thing, especially on the Mother's Day reflection, is what we must ask ourselves, what is our family's spiritual goals? Now, many of us aren't used to thinking in terms of spirituality. But you know what? Each family has a spiritual part to their life, whether we use the word spiritual or not. What I mean is, at the end of the day, there's something deeper about each and every one of us. It's not just about making a living and having vacations and changing our cars every 36 months. Everybody craves for a connection which is something larger than ourselves. Children especially wish to make sense of the world around them. And the ways in which we choose to live helps our family come up with their own answers to the big questions in life. So, here's the question. Do our kids see us doing charity? Do our children and grandchildren see us going out of our way to help others? Are we acting with honesty and honor? Do we allow inappropriate words to come out of our minds and out of our mouths when things don't go right? Are we showing them that we value our traditions, that we care for our communities, and we turn to them in times of trouble? Do our children see that we seek a connection with God and not just with Netflix? It can be daunting to influence the spiritual growth of our families, particularly when many of us haven't completely worked through our own thoughts and feelings yet. But guess what? Others are watching our examples just the same. There's a famous Jewish story shows the awesome power of a Jewish woman. Unfortunately, this is a story. Unfortunately, they were unable to have children with each other. So they decided to divorce and seek better fortunes with new spouses. See, each of these righteous persons in turn married a very wicked spouse. But their fates were very different. For in time, the virtuous man's evil wife influenced him to become wicked also. But the righteous woman gradually induced her wicked husband to become good like her. So, like this woman, each of us, we have the power to influence those around us. And we all know the power of the mother. Especially, a mother is well placed to display behavior that they wish their families to absorb. The other important aspect is, what is my legacy? We've got to think about it, especially during this time. You know, I'm reading and hearing and listening to podcasts and people who have survived the COVID-19, and all of them say that this has been a time when all of us have thought about mortality. So our question is, what is our legacy? What is our legacy? Alfred Nobel, a 19th century, we all know, Swedish chemist, he invented dynamite. In 1888, when he was 55, a French newspaper made a mistake and published his obituary. And of course, he was horrified with what he read. He was still alive. Death and destruction were his only legacies. Here he was, reading about his own obituary, and all it spoke about how Alfred Nobel had invented dynamite. Nobel decided to change and do something positive with the rest of his life. Guess what? What did he use his fortune? He established the famous Nobel Prize. Giving in perpetuity, it was given to honor advances in sciences, literature, and peace. You know the rest of the story. In 50 years, when our grandchildren tell their own grandchildren about their parents and grandparents, what they're going to say about us. Most of us won't have the shock that Alfred Nobel did, but we can learn a lot from his example and consider today what our legacy is all about. Another important thing on the day of Mother's Day is that, what are we grateful for? It's easy to get caught up in the work of being part of a family and forget the joy. Many people feel that in order to be happy, it's easiest to go out. Well, not exactly now, but what do people usually do? I'm going to be happy, do something good. I'm going to see a movie. I'm going to have a meal in Geweswas in some restaurant. I'm going to be entertained. Come on. Researchers have said that those who find outside sources for happiness quickly lose their potency. Instead, researchers have found that the quickest way to increase happiness is to focus on the good in our lives. And I think every one of us can appreciate, those of us listening, and those of us who know each other, and those who come together, and all the people that we know are alive today. I'm talking for myself. We've all learned really, right up front of the power of focusing on the good in our life around us. Specifically, psychologists have found that writing a list of things we're grateful for makes people significantly happier. All during this corona period, I've been trying to commit to writing a kind of a diary of what the questions that came up, who we spoke to, how we found strength from our great sages during this difficult time, and how we celebrated Passover, and the sadnesses of reading about and learning about and watching the podcast and watching all these. We went through a whole period from those before Passover were getting married without anybody else. They had these drive-by weddings through the streets and everybody waving from the windows. Then when we went to a drive-by funerals where people couldn't congregate, so they just watched from the windows or from the streets as the hearse drove by. And then we're now having a whole series of a month later of learning, like special gatherings, yard-side gatherings to remember those who've passed away. So, come on, who cannot be thinking about more meaningful aspects to our life during this time? And not to look forward to just simply going out and having another meal in some restaurant and taking another movie or to take who knows what on a trip on the boat somewhere. Come on, enough already. We have to be grateful for the things that we have right here. Write down. Let's think about our families, our health, even the miraculous fact of our existence today. All of this can help us appreciate how our families and who we are, and we can enjoy them, and we can appreciate and thank Hashem even greater than before. Let me now share with you a letter that was written from a grandmother. And the grandmother writes, for the past few years, she's always been around to help with babysitting. But she says that she starts to feel that somehow she's been signed up as a kind of a constant free babysitting. And she writes how she doesn't want this kind of commitment. She wants to take classes. She wants to participate in the local activities. But when she told her daughter that she's planned to do other things, she was upset with her and told me that she expected that I would be around to watch her baby while she went to work. What should she do? Writes this grandmother. So, let's be honest. The ability to be part of a grandchild's life and watch them grow up is a blessing unparalleled. Come on, there's nothing better than that. It is said that our children are our investment and our grandchildren are our dividends. So, although in terms of your grandchildren, it sounds to me, this lady, it sounds that she was really investing quite a bit. Within every relationship, there are limits that need to be set. To some very kind, loving souls, the very concept of setting limits sounds like you're being heartless or rigid. But when viewed with the right eyes, setting limitations can be extremely liberating. For example, a woman who's in the constant giving mode may find herself exhausted and depleted if she does not refresh herself and replenish her whole way of her strength. So setting limits about when you give, how you give, to whom and how much you give will not only provide you with a more honest relationship, but it can actually allow you to become more efficient. So too, I would suggest to this grandmother, with our responsibilities as a grandmother, or grandfather in that case, it is wonderful to be able to give so much time to your grandchildren. God should bless you with many more healthy years to continue to be an active part of their life. But when grandma is feeling depleted or taken advantage of, she's not likely to give at the level she would like to, or they would like her to be involved in. We all need to set limits for ourselves that will enable us to be our best selves. We were created to imbue this physical world with truth and with virtue, with holiness. That's the life. That's our life's mission. Our sages teach that the way to achieve true happiness is through spiritual growth and achievement. That means giving to others, loving and sharing, and finding deeper meaning in everything that we do. The activities that you have that this lady wanted to do in the coming year is an amazing thing. That this lady wanted to be able to go out and learn more and become part of classes. But then her daughter was upset with her because she was taking too much time away from babysitting. We have the famous Rabbi Huda Nasi, the great Judah, who teaches us in the Pirkei Avos which is the right path for a man, for mankind to choose for themselves. And the answer is whatever is harmonious for the one who does it and harmonious for mankind. It's crucial to find internal harmony, both for oneself and for our family. We need to understand that by putting oneself first, you are not neglecting your family, you're actually making yourself a better person. There's no hard and fast rules, my friends, about our grandparenting responsibilities, where it should begin and where it should end. Every grandmother will find her comfort zone. When the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke of aging in retirement, he said, "You can nourish your soul by setting aside a time each day to study and pray, and feed your mind and your heart, and share your life with your grandchildren." It is important to realize that it's not necessarily an all or none situation. After you have a clear understanding of your schedule, maybe you'll know when you'll have time to spend more time with your grandchildren. Right? We all want to do the right thing for our family. Trying something new and soul nurturing for oneself may just wind up being great for everyone, because you become more spiritual, more caring, more understanding. And children have to appreciate that everybody needs that time. And therefore, let us on this special day of Mother's Day bless all of us success and harmony on whichever path that we choose. Therefore, on a day like this, let's use this day to reflect on the goals that we have for our family, and we're certainly having plenty of opportunity during this particular period of time. And may Hashem bless us that very soon we will be reunited, not only spiritually, because spiritually we've always been united, even under these quarantine situations, but also physically as well. That all of us should be united again as a family, with our families, and with our synagogue, and our communities, and our programs, etc. And therefore, I want to say thank you to everybody. The opportunity that we all have each Sunday to come to you, and stay tuned, because we have at 11 a.m., that's on this day on Sunday, we have a special Zoom session where we get together. It's called Meet and Greet, and that's what we all want to do, is to be able to, at least virtually, to do that as well. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing everybody a wonderful day, a wonderful Mother's Day with all its deeper meaning, and to use this day to inspire us that every day should have the same kind of respect that we have for our parents, for our mothers and fathers and grandmothers, and all kinds of good things. So again, my friends, if you ever want to reach us during this time, or you know someone who's lonely, like a phone call, or maybe needs food, please feel free to call us at 516-739-3636, and we'll be more than happy to reach out and help anyone you wish. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you an amazing day, a wonderful good week.